Terry Larson here. Worked for the fire training school off and on for a couple of decades and retired from Billings as a battalion chief down there after 27 and a half years of enjoyable times of doing HR stuff with crews and guys. So that's a little bit about me. Troy, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Troy Petersen, also with the Fire Services School. I'm the North Central area rep for the fire school. 30 some years in the fire service. Recently here about 6 or 7 months ago from Missouri, retired from Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department with 25 years there. Last 17 of them as a captain on the heavy rescue, and then went to work for Boone County Fire District in Columbia, Missouri, which is the largest volunteer fire department in Missouri. 15 stations, 220 or so volunteers. Worked for them until I had the opportunity to move me and my 8-year-old knucklehead twins and my wife to Montana, and you couldn't get me here fast enough. So I'm thrilled to death to be here.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, tonight we're going to have a little conversation. And that conversation is about expectations. And it's how establishing expectations leads to member involvement and performance. So I'm going to pull up a handout. I don't know if everybody got their handout clicked on and downloaded and have it in their hand, but this is kind of what we're going to go over. Here it is. This is a sheet that we use in the leadership program for Fire Officer 1. And we're going to go through where this kind of came from and what we use it for. So this Q12 is from the Gallup polls. And most everybody knows what Gallup polls are all about, but Gallup's kind of been looking at employee engagement for about over 20 years right now, and they've questioned 2 million employees about what they want out of their boss, what behaviors they want from their boss for them to do their job. And it ties directly into their participation, their involvement, their safety, whether they want to work hard or they want to not show up. So I'll quick run through just some of these questions, and then we're going to discuss some of these with you guys. So the first one, this is what the employees or the members would say. First of all, do I know what's expected of me at work? Okay. Second, Q12 is, do I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right? The third Q12 is, at work, do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day? The fourth Q12, in the past 7 days, I have received recognition or praise for good work. The fifth one, does my supervisor or someone at work seem to care about me as a person? 6, is there someone at work who encourages my development? Okay, number 7, at work, do my opinions seem to count? 8, does the mission or purpose of my agency make me feel like my work is important? 9, are my coworkers committed to doing quality work also? 10, do I have a best friend at work? Q11, in the past 6 months, I have talked with someone about my progress. And Q12, at work, have I had opportunities to learn and grow? So the first one we're going to talk about is expectations. And what we want to know is, what have you done in your organization personally to let members know what their expectations are, what your expectations are, sorry, for members? So just to give you an example, one of the expectations I had as a battalion chief in Billings for my captains was when we were in the hazard zone, I expected immediate answer on the radio. And that is critical for me as an incident commander to make sure that I had them captured and I had their attention and that they could engage me with critical information, especially in the hazard zone. Troy, did you have an example of one of your expectations?
So I tried to run expectations fairly short and sweet, and I actually kind of kept my expectations down to right around a dozen expectations for my crews. And it was something that was always ongoing and shifting. And really, one of the biggest expectations that we did with our guys on a heavy rescue really looked at the guys and said we were going to perform the fundamentals, the basics of what we're going to do flawlessly every day. We're not going to climb into the advanced stuff. We're going to do just the basics, and we're going to do those absolutely flawlessly.
Awesome.
So for the guys out there, who out there has had great experiences in the workplace, personally, on the department, anything else where you've had good expectations lined up for you from a boss or a manager?
Well, say if I could offer one, this is Carl, Jefferson City Volunteer Fire Department. Is somewhat answering yours, Troy, but going back to what Terry said, is the expectation I give to all new members, and usually every year we have, maybe 1, 2, or 3 new members, is to let them know that I'm there for them, that I expect them to, that they can talk to me about anything to do with, the fire department, or having to do, if they're get quite involved in other business, or, with their job or home or children or so on. It's okay. I'm there to, they can expect me to listen to them, and they can have a good future as a volunteer. And I'll stand with them just on that part of it. How you handle fire techniques and so forth and applications is something else, but it's just on the personal part of it. Is once they join, or before they join, I tell them that's who I am, and you can expect that of me. So I'm trying to give them confidence and not have them feel that they have to stand in a corner, at a meeting, or they're going to be the last one to get up to the engine to look at the pump, with all the old timers standing around it. So I'll just offer that. Thanks.
So Carl, in doing that, what kind of responses did you get from your people out of that? Was that an immediate response? Was that oh, okay, well, you're saying this, let me see. Let me see over time how that actually happens and works.
It develops over time. And especially with the younger folks, because you can really help them out, assist them, and you can, because the chief, any of the folks here on this talk, others and how to help them in getting other training or summer jobs, in fire. With state agencies and so on. So usually it's going to take a little bit, but once you start listening to them of what they're, asking questions. Well, what do you want to accomplish, or how involved do you want to be? And by the way, however involved they want to be is fine, because everybody is from, a different cut of cloth here. So, it depends on the individual, how much time it takes. But anyway, over, months or a year, you can really make a difference if they can expect you to listen to them.
How about anybody else? What else have people seen in your experiences, just personal experiences in receiving expectations?
This is Tracy. I can just comment on that. A two-way street on expectations that, the people that you work with know what you expect, and you know what's expected of you. It's just like having autopilot. When we have a firefighter that's firefighter 1 qualified, we have some basic expectations of what they can do. So we're not going to micromanage them. We're going to give them a mission knowing that they have the tools and the skills to do it. So, having those certifications, we anticipate or expect that they have a skill set and they can, our expectation is they can complete a mission that they're assigned.
And what kind of feedback do you get from them, Tracy, when you come in and you say, look, we're not going to micromanage. We're going to give you that expectation. We're going to expect you to go out and perform just like this. What kind of feedback do you get from them?
It's a good feedback. It really, I think it really boosts their confidence. That they've put in the time, they've done the training, they've achieved that skill set and that certification, and it just gives them confidence and some positive feedback that, that, hey, I believe that you're capable of doing this, and I know you've put in the time. So, I think it's a real confidence builder for them.
And how do you think that affects you as a leader in the amount of time and the work that you have to put into overseeing what they do and how they perform?
Oh, it drastically reduces what I'm required to do. When I know who's arriving on the engine, I know what I've got. I know what their capabilities are. As soon as they arrive, they've got a mission, and I'm done with them. They're on their mission. They're going to tell me when it's finished. And while they're in process of doing their first assignment, I'm hopefully working on getting the next thing set up and ready. So when they call in and say they've accomplished that first assignment, I'll give them the next one. And that's kind of one thing, like you mentioned earlier, all of our members, from cadets to rookies, firefighter 1, everybody has a written, mostly just like 3 bullet points of the expectations. And everybody knows it, from our captains to assistant chief and myself. So that way everybody knows when they ask somebody to do something, they know what those expectations are.
That's great. Thank you very much, Tracy. Who
Lynn.
else has had?
Lynn Stimson stepped in there. I want to ask him what his experience is with setting expectations with new members and how that has worked out for him in his endeavors.
Okay, let me try. Sorry, Wednesday nights are complicated for me. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
We can.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, I felt like when I joined that there really weren't expectations set. And so, I was super enthusiastic. I was wanting to do the right thing, but occasionally felt like I was trying to do the right thing, but got fussed at for it. And nobody had ever told me not to do those things. So we've tried to purposely clean that up a little bit. And it even starts right from, so say we're trying to recruit or we've got somebody with interest, right from the start, when we're giving them a tour around the station, talking about, well, okay, this is how much training we do. This is, this is our call volume. This is what we expect out of you in relation to that. So that even once you get them on as a member, they're not surprised. We do a formal orientation, but letting them know right from when we first meet them, this is sort of the positive aspects of the culture of our department, that we are super nice with each other, that we are very customer service oriented, that we are trying where we can, as hard as we can, to follow national standards, so that, I hate to say it, but maybe a bit of self-selection. If it's people who are going to do it a different way, sooner rather than later, we all figure that out.
Yeah, and how did that work out for you in retaining members?
When I have members who have to leave, it's usually because they move for a job or something. And, I had one recently and he was borderline in tears, just afraid to tell me that he had to leave. So it's really, once we kind of got that going, the teamwork started coming on, and gosh, it's a little sunnier place to be as a workplace. When everybody knows, okay, you join, you're going to train, you're going to work hard, we're going to be super fun and friendly, but within national standards, and you end up recruiting people who want to do that. And then the recruiting starts to almost run itself at a certain point, because people look at the teamwork, or your members are your best recruiters. So that's really worked out well. And then that's sort of at the very start. Once we onboard them, we do have a very formal checklist that our officers are required to go through, so that we let people start running calls right after they finish the orientation in a very restricted way, because, so we need to lay out some safety items and things. But honestly, the first thing on that checklist of expectations is customer service, that, we're not going to be arrogant about anything. We're going to show up and how can we serve that customer? And that's literally the first thing on the expectation checklist. And it's just been a non-issue since then. We don't have to correct behavior later.
That's
So
great.
was there a time, did you guys happen upon this, or did you guys do this with thought and purpose going forward into it?
It was a little bit of trial and error, but also, literally leadership courses like this, that you're supposed to be doing employee evaluations and onboarding. And essentially we needed to start looking at our volunteers as our high performance employees. And they really welcomed it, that those orientation sessions, we've gotten very positive feedback on those. And it's not huge, the whole checklist takes a couple hours, and a lot of it's just nuts and bolts, like, what station do you go to, and let me give you a tour of that station. Who do you know? Okay, it's your first call. What do we expect you to do? Well, we expect you to shadow the ranking officer. Well, what happens if somebody orders you to do something you don't know how to do? Here's how you handle that. And it's really appreciated by our members.
So who else out there has had similar responses from their personnel, similar to what Lynn's talking about?
Chief Woods, how does your experience go with expectations up front, set clear expectations with members? You're still muted. Okay, we'll come back to Chief Woods when he can get unmuted. Technical difficulties, we understand that. So how about you, Chief Schindel, over in Broadwater County? Do you have any experience with upfront expectations with members?
I know when I get some new members come in, one of the first things I say is I don't expect them to be at everything, but the more they can come to trainings, I expect them to participate and learn this stuff and not just stand back and watch. And has seemed to be working fairly well. I had 4 new recruits this year, and they've been the most ambitious bunch I think I've ever had. So it's working out really well this time.
Oh, how so do you think it's working out for them?
Well, I think it's working because they are coming. They've actually been coming to incidents and learning. They're right on somebody's hip, learning what to do, and they're asking questions all the time. And it's working really well as far as I can tell. They're really ambitious, good go-getters.
All right, very good. It looks like we got Chief Woods on.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Now, I'm new to the chief's position, so that's the sole reason I'm taking this class. I want to be able to lead everybody. But as far as my expectations go, an open line of communication is first and foremost. We do have a few new members, and I emphasize training because we do have new members, and I want them to not get it wrong. I want them to train and train and train with us.
So I think we hear frequently a lot of different people talk about being afraid to set expectations. Hearing people say, well, gosh, if I put too many expectations on them, or I give a list of expectations, I mean, gosh, these guys are volunteers. We're going to run them off. We're going to lose them. And so what we're hearing from a lot of the people here is that we're not having that case. How many people out there, is there anybody out there that has had places where they could set expectations and maybe you're just not sure how to set those and how to approach the people with them? How do some of you guys come up with your expectations? It sounds like Chief Stimson, you guys have a pretty solid list of expectations in a program you go. How did you come about identifying what those expectations are?
And first I want to come back around to it works really well now, but when we first started working towards being specific about it, there was a generation of members that never really got on board with it. So it isn't all happy-go-lucky on setting them. We're much better off for having done it. But, when you've got folks that have been there 10 or 15 years, change is so hard. And there was some of that. And, I guess on the subject of retention, I didn't retain them. Some of those self-selected out because I think they felt like that they were given one set of expectations, which is we're a social club, and we switched it up on them. So I do want to, you're going to feel some of that. Even to the point where I had trainings where people actively disrupted trainings, and so there was that process at the start. But the thing I always have to remind myself is that when you do start to set expectations, everybody that comes in from that day after doesn't know you were ever doing it wrong, and that helps you to carry through on it. As far as the second question of how you set those. We've got a lot of good examples out there. The thing I keep learning over and over is that the more I try and get clever, the more I probably should have just been looking at how other people have been doing it. We're not the first to run a fire department. We're not the biggest and we're not the best. And look at what they're doing and take off from that. Whether it's reading Bruno's books or tremendous amounts of information. And I feel like in Firehouse, they got to tell us the same thing over and over and over. The information's out there on how to set expectations and train. The other thing is, yeah, leadership training is bigger than the fire world. I when I first started trying to write down our expectations, I was coming more from leadership training at outside fire world, but leadership is leadership, and a lot of the concepts are the same. And the thing is, sometimes it's just saying, what the hell do we have expectations, whether you write them down or not. Start writing them down. And I've probably been through 10 revisions of my list, because I'll be sitting there talking to a new member and think, this should be better. I go back and change it, and the next person that joins never knows it was wrong, or not wrong, that it could have been better.
See, Terry, Carl here.
Yep.
On expectations, if you don't mind, just another one is the chief's relationship with that new member. And again, I still go back to, you have to be able to listen, to talk with, to inform them about what this is all about. But the time you spend, I'm just thinking about this, and let's just say in the first year, and especially in the first months, because the individual who's volunteering, has their high hopes of whatever they imagine volunteer fire department is. And then, of course, you're what you have to do, and it doesn't have to be the chief, but it needs to be, the chief, the assistant chief, one of your, captains who, has been around a little bit, who knows what the volunteer fire department is about. And by the way, it means including having good community relationships. So it's not just how to drive an engine and so forth, but being able to talk with that member, because, and if it's you, the chief, because it does start out there, to show them, your expectations, I never use the word, here's my expectations for you, but it's how you safely do this and that. And in my case, I'm just saying, I really emphasize personal safety. And that goes beyond, getting the job done, but doing it safely, and maybe establishing a link with whomever the new recruit is, or even if it's somebody who's been in a different outfit that's coming to your department, putting that right up front, your safety, we care about you. We want to get the job done, and how to do it safely. And so the chief can actually speak up, and you don't have to use the words expect, but it's even as so minor as, don't come out of that fire truck face first, come out, your rear end first, so you can hold on. And by the way, this comes from experience, So there's, and in safety, that is my, as a chief, my main focus. I think you establish a link or something, a communication with the new recruit. Again, it could be somebody, an old recruit who's been at, and that's happened too. It's somebody who's been in different departments. And by the way, I can remember now, a few years ago, individual left. We just couldn't, the person couldn't fit in. They, including they wanted to sleep at the fire station. It was a whole different view of what the fire department is, volunteer fire department is for Jefferson City. And it wasn't fitting in. And finally, it became knowledgeable to both of us. I as the chief and that individual, this really isn't working out. So you have to expect that too. You can't be successful all the time. You can try, but you have to live with life.
Carl,
Thanks,
do you think the reason that he didn't fit is because he didn't know what expectations, boundaries he had? Or they?
Well, no, he knew this person, and it's fine. This person knew the boundaries, but they were way overstepping what we had for Jefferson City Volunteer Fire Department. And, going on their view with, their expectations just didn't mesh at all. And of course, we talked about it, but finally it ended up, sort of like this. It's not working out. And finally, the chief, well, in that case, you have to stand pretty tall, because you're looking at otherwise changing the whole department, your department. And do you really want to go that way? And it wasn't it didn't fit with even our other members. I mean, it was an odd occurrence, but that's when you have to cut the ties there. It just didn't work.
So in doing that, in having expectations and setting those expectations, how did that ease that ability or that transition to separate somebody who wasn't meeting those expectations?
It gives, well, in this case, it gives you, the chief, the backbone that, your expectations, you give a lot, you give certain latitude on any of the actions or so on, but finally, this is how we've been successful. This is how we have support. We're doing well, and we can't expand now. That finally, it's your personal view of how this department's heading. You're the leadership, but still you depend on all your members, every one of them. And so it wasn't that difficult because as long, and what you need to do is to be able to have the communications all along. And it, by the way, it happened in another case also. And your department, it's the department is successful because the members working, you working with the members and them working with you. That's the success. And when things go beyond those expectations, it gets down to personal discussions then and you got to be honest with yourself and that's what I think all the chiefs, all of you who are in battalion commanders and all this and captains, you realize that too. It's, what is your philosophy, and you've got to fit in too,
Andrew Herrick, welcome. I wanted to ask you, do you have any personal experience with having expectations set forth that let you do your job to your best ability? You're muted. There we go.
There we go. Sorry about that. I try to expect everybody to generally work safely, just because not only do I want anybody I'm working with to be able to go home safely, I would like myself to go home safely at the end of every day. And it's I try to keep my expectations with down at the fire hall like I do at my regular job with anybody I'm training at work, whether it's a new guy or somebody that's come in from another area, just trying to get everybody on the same page, because everybody's a little different depending on the region where you're from, where you've been. So just trying to get everybody on the same page is kind of the expectation I try to do.
Sorry, there we go. Yeah, does that help you get that help you get everybody on a common ground by using expectations that everybody can understand?
I personally believe so. It seems to make things run smoother, and if there are any questions, try to have it to where, you know, nobody feels out of place with asking questions, whether it's from yourself or another member or anybody.
Okay, all right, good. Do you have any specific examples that you'd share?
I mean, even like with our new recruits that we've just had in Broadwater County, you know, it's trying to keep them hands-on and everything like that. You know, I myself tend to ask, you know, do you guys have any questions? Is there anything that you feel you need to go over again? Just trying to help get them as comfortable as possible. And especially with this last batch of recruits we've had, they seem more than willing to ask the questions and really seem to absorb any and all knowledge that they can get their hands on.
Good deal, thanks. Appreciate that. Chief Hansen, up in the Northern Triangle. Do you have any experience with setting expectations for training?
Not so much with training, I guess we do, but we set expectations with the newer people right off the bat. We also want them to have their spouse involved when we first meet with them. We tell them what we expect of them, and they both have to agree to it. We've had more problems with the spouse saying that's too much time that wasn't conveyed to us, and so they make the husband quit or make the wife quit, and so we try to join with them, or we meet with both of them, the couple, and then once they agree to join, we run them through a rookie task book, and that's what we want them to learn initially right away to catch up to speed, and they have 6 months to do it. If they don't get their rookie task book completely signed, they do not belong here.
So Chief, what kind of things are in that rookie task book? Because those are basically expectations, aren't they?
Yeah, just simple things like, if you're a new firefighter, and you're going to a fire, there's room on a truck to go, which seat you should probably sit in. We train them to initially to be on a hydrant, the hydrant seat, and that's one of the things. First things they learn is how to do the hook a hydrant, and so we can rely and count on them. We don't want them sitting in the driver's seat or SCBA seat until they get trained in it. That's further down in their task book. Yeah, bylaws and SOGs. That's on an hour and a half class. Want to totally know everything about the department, how we operate, the do's and the don'ts. And, I think there's 10 sections in that rookie task book that we complete. Extrications 1, air packs, the turnout gears. Well, of course, that's usually the first one we try to do. Wildland, there's a wildland chapter. And since we started doing that task book, I think it's really helped. We know exactly where they are within their probationary period, and after 6 months, if they don't have all the signatures in that book, they're done.
What about consistency? Does that task book, having those expectations wrote down, give you some consistency?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep, that's how we operate, so that's how we wrote it down.
Okay, very good, very good.
So we had talked a few weeks ago when we were up there talking about that, and you had mentioned including that spouse into going over those expectations. I think that's a piece that a lot of departments have probably not really entertained or have missed on. And your experience with that, how has that increased or assisted in that involvement of those members? And has it increased involvement of those spouses in the department as well?
Yeah, I think it has. I mean, every once in a while we'll get one of the last, well, a couple months ago, we had a recruit and he couldn't ever get his wife to come down here. He didn't last very long. For some reason, I don't know if he couldn't ever seem to get away. And I'm sure she had him doing things and she didn't know the involvement that was going to take. So I think the spouses, once we get done going through that, I think it opens their eyes up, and most of them push their husbands or push their wives to join once they see what we do and why we do it that way.
Muted there again. Dave, quick, what's your experience with having expectations up front?
I don't think he was
Okay.
expecting to have to answer.
Yeah.
So in looking at expectations, if you look at that Q12, that Gallup leadership poll in doing this, expectations is number one on that list. And again, this is Gallup looking at this over, I mean, a company that originally started in the 1930s and has been doing thousands and thousands of engagement polls for employees of, again, this is what employees really say they want from their bosses. And we look at this and we say, okay, number one is expectation. I want to know what I need to do. And if I don't know that, then how can I be successful here? How can I feel a part of this? And so, that's one of 12 pieces to this that all can really influence that recruitment, especially that retention piece. One of the things that we really look at in what we're trying to provide is that Fire Officer 1 program that we do with the fire school. And how many of the departments you have out there that actually, how many of you embrace doing Fire Officer 1? And that's not just for the chief officers, for your line officers, for your captains and down, lieutenants, captains, anything on up in between. Really look at having formalized training, doing that Fire Officer 1. Again, we heard a couple of people say, well, all of these expectations are out there. We don't have to reinvent that wheel, but it's really, how do we look at it? How do we piece it together? Something we'd really like some of you guys to consider is, wherein does that fall into place with your departments, and how much success do your departments have in being able to piece all of those together in just more than expectation? Is there another piece to any of these Q12s that jump out at anybody right off the bat in looking there that make you go, well, I'd like to know a little bit more how that affects as well? How about Sean McClary?
So I was kind of going over it. Recognition part, I've heard a lot of our new guys say they don't feel they get enough recognition. For anything, I guess. I guess you kind of have to, some people are like that, I guess, if that makes sense, you know what I mean? They want a pat on the back every time they do something good, which, you know, in some cases that's, you need to do that.
So how do you think, Sean, that pat on the back can assist you in your use of expectations?
Well, I mean, it gives them confidence. I don't think you should, you know, give them a pat on the back for every single thing they do, you know, because, you know, at some point it's going to be just kind of like, hey, you did good. And they're like, yeah, whatever kind of thing. Right. So, you know, we try to do that. Me as a captain, I definitely, you know, we go on a car wreck or structure fire or whatever. It's, hey, good job, guys. You know, I pay attention to what goes on. You kind of have to, but, you know, if somebody did something wrong, obviously we're going to point that out to them as well. But I don't know. That one's kind of a tough one for me because.
So do you think there's any reinforcement in the rest of the crew watching you pat somebody on the back for what they've done that falls in line with those expectations?
I guess I don't really understand the question. I mean, is it something that, you know, if somebody sees, like a deputy chief sees me go up and, you know, give somebody a high five, hey, great job, you know, you did good kind of thing. Because I know we have a few chiefs that don't really do that, you know, the older guys. You know, I was listening to Lynn talk there, and I think it was Lynn about, you know, you get in that 20, 25 year mark and they do what they do, you know, a lot of things have changed. Well, the basics haven't, but the way we teach people and train people nowadays is a lot different than we did back when they got on the fire department, you know? So I don't know. I try to do it as much as I can, but not overdo it, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
It does. I guess really what I was kind of driving at is just that positive reinforcement that, hey, look, you met expectations.
Right.
Great, good job. And when everybody else in there is seeing another person receive that praise for, hey, yeah, look, you met that expectation. Is that going to reinforce that expectation to everybody else that, wow, this really means something to Sean. He identified that this was in expectation and it meant something to him.
Right. Totally get that. I would hope it would. I mean, you know, the last year and a half, we've hired a lot of young guys. You know, I'm sure it's all across the board with volunteers, you know, trying to get volunteers. So our numbers have kind of dropped quite a bit, but the groups we've had in are, you know, I think our oldest one we've hired in the last 2 years out of 15 guys is like 22, you know, so it's good. We can mold them the way we want them, you know, and then you get, every once in a while you get one in there that's 40, 45 years old or whatever, you know, it's like, we can train him too. You know, good leader, but kind of teaching an old dog new tricks. But yeah, yeah, it is. I would hope that, you know, if somebody sees me doing that to one of the new guys, you know, hey, good job, you did great. I would hope they would recognize that, yeah, and want to do better. So.
Good, thank you, Sean.
You
Appreciate it.
bet.
Anybody else have anything on recognition? I mean, there's lots of different ways to recognize somebody, and a lot of it isn't necessarily straight out, you know, a public showing. Sometimes it's just a good old thumbs up, seeing somebody do a good job.
I agree with that too. Yes, totally.
Well, Terry, it's Carl again. Another way what we could do is a person, you know, volunteer who's doing whatever activity, whatever it is, in a real positive way. You know, what you can do too is get them involved in more of a leadership It doesn't mean they have to be in the department for 8 or 12 years. It's that style of thinking, that whatever they came up with, get them involved. And I mean, that's how you can give them a pat on the back too, without, well, it's a form of giving a pat on the back is, hey, at our next meeting, how about if you make a little presentation on this? And it's because I feel, as the chief, that we really should hear this. So, and getting more people involved, more your firefighters involved, instead of you being up there or you watching out just an expectation, it strengthens the department. So, and you can do it with a newer member too. If, they did whatever it is in an activity, or even work what they did in something in town. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, but giving them the recognition instead of you just being up there talking or having a list of expectations. It's a broad, expectations is a broad way of accomplishing it.
So how does that make you feel if you get recognized for something that you did that was good? How does that feel to you?
Are you asking me?
Yes, Carl.
Oh. I really don't care to be recognized. I've been around a lot of different jobs for years, for service and so on. And at this point, it's how can I recognize others? How can I help others? And one way is by getting that person more involved, because you can see everybody, has a certain slant on something, and one works out real well in doing this activity or talking about, in fact, we had one recently, a member was talking about the calves, unit, on an engine. And so actually let that person run with that. It was good information. I didn't even get involved that deeply in it, in my understanding. And we went and visited another department, another chief, and got information, came back and gave a presentation and so on. So that's how I feel good about things. It's not for me to be recognized. It's for me to assist others. My opinion.
Okay, all right.
I've got a little something on that.
Sure.
Sure, it might not be from the firefighters, but when you're out in public and you get a compliment on your people, how they worked, that does make me feel a lot better. And you kind of got to be careful not to attaboy just one or two people. Make sure you keep the whole group in there too. Even the older people, they want to hear congratulations too.
So what do you do with those when you get that public? The member of the public comes up and tells you what a good job your people do. How do you transfer that over?
I go right back to the team members that were there and let them all know that they did a fantastic job.
Good deal. Patty, how does the a pat on the back do for your involvement in wanting to do good?
Did you ask Patty that
Yeah.
question? Oh, so to give you some background, I'm an HR consultant.
Right.
And I'm trying to put together an HR module for supervisors to, for firefighters who want to become supervisors. And so always, it's important to do the feedback. Too many times employees don't know if they're doing well because they don't hear it. And they also don't know if they're not doing well because they don't hear it. And then the supervisor wants to get rid of that person yesterday, which isn't fair to the employee at all. So did that answer your question?
A little bit, yes.
So what did I miss? Part of it, I was kind of.
Well, I wanted your personal involvement, and how you
Oh.
feel when you get praise on doing something, and how does that translate into what you want to do for work?
Geez, I don't know how long it's been since I got praised for doing anything. So, no, I actually am on the city council here in White Sulphur too. And some public has told me that they think I'm doing a good job, and it keeps me going to meetings and working for the community. So,
Okay, good deal. I
See,
don't know if we're supposed to
Terry-
wrap up with go
Terry,
ahead.
I've got one final thought here. Well, you know me, I just like to say
Yep.
something.
Absolutely.
So two things, one of which is I've really had to learn to be less stingy with praise, that it's actually kind of hard to overdo it. You know, my nature is to be really stingy with it, and it's got to be something really special. And I've just had to train that out of myself. So that's one thought. The other thing is, even if it's not a specific pat on the back, people want to be noticed. They want, there's nothing worse than working hard on something and then nobody gave a crap. And so, I've heard from a number of experienced supervisors, and I try and do it myself, where, if somebody's at the station, I stop by and check in on them. If it's apparatus check night, I go to each person. How's it going? What's going on? And it's just that I'm noticing what they're doing is almost a pat in the back in and of themselves. And I really try and be really purposeful about that. Versus, I do have a lot of stuff to do. I could head right to the office, but I purposely try and hit every person. And at first it felt weird because I was doing it because I've been trained to do it, but now it's natural and it really matters. And people feel like you notice what they're doing.
I totally agree, Lynn. Absolutely. So
I ran through that myself as a company officer with 8 guys assigned in doing hot washes after fires. I really, as a new officer, I was really pointing out and spent a lot of time identifying where we went wrong. What did we do wrong? And really what I ended up with, and I came to a realization when I had a guy walk into my office one night and said, "Gosh, Cap, we can't ever do anything right for you, can we?" And I thought, oh my God, what do you mean you can't do anything right? I mean, you guys just totally kicked butt on this last fire. But that's not what they heard. That's not what came across. We were doing hot washes, and I thought in hot washes, we needed to identify what went wrong so we could improve it. And I really sat back and thought about that. And my approach completely changed over the next 6 to 8 months. And I made a point of not really concentrating on the things that went wrong. Have any of you guys had an emergency that went 100% right? Haven't seen one yet. And so I turned around and said, okay, let's look at what went right and let's focus on that, and in really digging into what went right and how we could improve that. We kept the message positive. What I kind of realized was we're interacting with our people every day. Our interactions are either negative, positive, or They're really nowhere in between. And so if your interactions are always solidly positive, I actually noticed a huge, huge difference. It actually created a problem for me in that it forced more people to study. And in that next year, I lost 4 guys out of promotion and had to train new guys. So just think on that praise versus, how often are we holding the praise or not? Really, I don't think you can overdo it.
thanks, Troy. I see there's a note down in chat that says, thanks for joining us tonight. There's a survey, and the administrators of this program would like you to take a moment and complete the survey because they want to know how they're doing and what else we can talk about. So I don't want to cut it short. If anybody wants to go, they can go. If not, we'll stick around for a few more minutes and answer any more questions you might have. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you very, very much.
Any more questions? All right.
Thanks,
All right,
Troy.
thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Terry.
guys.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you, Jerry.
You bet.